Starting at 19, I was paid to go out with wealthy married women. Ask me anything. I agonized for 2 weeks about whether to make this threat or not. I finally decided to. This isn't flexing, and it's not a grab for attention. It's something I've kept secret for over 20 years. My family still doesn't know. I think posting this now is a kind of therapy for me. It all began in 2003, when I was 19 and working at the Everglades Club in Florida. I parked golf carts, brought drinks, helped with events, did a little bit of everything. If you pay attention in places like that, you can see a lot. About 6 months in, I met one of the club's patrons. She was pushing 50, a dazzling blonde who always looked impeccable. She was married to a man who was almost never around. We hung out a lot, laughed, and our conversations kept getting more personal until it turned into something else. One day we met outside the club, slept together, and she handed me $4,000 in cash. For a 20-year-old in 2003, that was money I'd never held or even seen. She talked me into quitting the club, and for the next 2 years we spent a huge amount of time together. Through her circle, I met other women, at charity galas, private receptions, and out-of-town weekends. They took me along without much explanation, bought gifts, and covered all expenses. Gradually, it became a chain of secret paid relationships. Over the years, I've been involved with the wives of billionaires and multimillionaires, C-suite execs, and people well known in their fields. Almost all of them were cheating, and often their husbands knew and didn't object. For many of those marriages, it was more about image and convenience than romance. Pretty early on, I got into women's psychology and the nature of intimacy itself. I studied body language, timing, and behavioral patterns to understand why women who seemed to have everything kept looking for something else. Today, I don't depend on that side of my life financially anymore, but I never completely left it. The first money I made became seed capital for investments, which is what supports me now. In a little over 20 years, I've been to 31 countries, stayed in luxury suites, been on yachts that cost more than entire neighborhoods. I've seen flings outlast marriages. I think that's enough backstory. Ask me anything. In all those years, did husbands ever catch you with their wives? Were you worried about your safety? In a bit over 20 years, I can remember only 5 women who truly got caught. Of those 5, only 2 divorced. The rest stayed married. And surprisingly, not much changed in their lives. Reality is, in those circles, marriage is usually about money, status, and social position, not love or exclusivity. People on the outside don't get that dynamic. If a woman does get caught, the husband's reaction is usually one of 2 types. Either he silently accepts it from the start, or he gets angry at first but ends up making peace with it. The reason is simple. Divorce is financially devastating for these men. If she's been with him long enough, she can take half, even more, and expect lifelong support. Many would rather swallow their pride than lose hundreds of millions. I've also had cases where the husband not only knew, but was directly involved. Countless times I was with a woman while her husband watched. Sometimes it's about control, sometimes voyeurism, and sometimes a shared fetish they've kept secret for years. It's not that rare, especially among very wealthy couples who are used to getting whatever they want. As for my safety, I've never had a husband come at me aggressively. But there were times I had to bail fast if someone came home early. You learn quickly to act only in fully controlled circumstances and rely on the women's discretion. Mostly, they're the ones who make sure everything stays secret. Did women tell you up front they were married? And were there times the couple picked you together? Yeah, some told me right away, some mentioned it later. There were also situations where it was obvious I was chosen by mutual decision. Usually that happened after a holiday party or some event. Those felt more planned, but sometimes it happened spontaneously. What did you notice being around high society? Are people disposable to them? Or do they actually look for genuine connection? From what I've seen, both. At the top, people can be considered disposable if they're not useful or bringing value. But that doesn't mean they don't crave connection. The issue is their idea of connection is different from regular people's. Most of the time it's transactional, even when it's not about money. It can be status, influence, access to something or someone, or simply the thrill of interacting outside their usual circle. Real emotional closeness is rare. They're used to everyone having an angle. So when they find someone they can relax with, no judgment, no hidden motives, it hits harder. That's why some women have seen me for years. I'm not from their world, I'm not competing with their lifestyle, and I don't spill their secrets. In their world, trust is more valuable than money. Bro, help me get into that industry. This isn't a field where you submit a resume or apply for an opening. It's almost entirely looks-driven. Like it or not, race and body type matter. In practice, these women have very specific tastes, and a huge number of them gravitate toward black men. That's just a fact from my experience, and I've been fortunate that I'm black. Beyond that, it's about being in the right places where affluent women show up. Charity galas, luxury hotels, private clubs, art shows. You can't force it and you can't look like you're trying too hard. Those women are always around. You just have to approach and try. I'm curious how your family still hasn't suspected anything. How do you explain all the trips? Do you still talk to the first woman? My family never asked many questions. I just say I'm in real estate and finance. If I'm in Europe for a week, they assume it's work. I haven't spoken to that first woman since 2009. About that first woman, how did it go from you driving a golf cart to suddenly being in bed with her? Who started the flirting? Whose idea was it? How long from first meeting to hooking up? It started gradually, light conversations, playful comments, lingering eye contact. She was the one who made the next move. From our first meeting to the bedroom was maybe a couple of weeks. You said once you got $170,000 for 4 days. What was that like? How do you even process that? You do feel a kind of pride, but at the same time it seems absurd. At first it felt surreal. I'd only seen numbers like that in movies, and then in a few days it lands in my account. At first it's pride, but mostly shock. Very quickly you realize money flows on a totally different scale in certain circles. For them it's not reckless spending. It's pocket change compared to their net worth. I don't think about it in moral categories because in their world it's normal. These people live in a different economic reality. They can drop the same amount on a bottle of wine or a watch without blinking. For them it's not about need or excess. It's about wanting something right now and having the ability to get it. You just become part of what they want. How much have you earned overall? Did you steer women into this, or were they the initiators? How do those conversations even start? Over the years, I've made a little over 7 figures from women directly, but much more from business projects I run in parallel. Early on, I didn't have to convince anyone. Most of the time, they initiated. Now it's all word of mouth. I have a limited circle of clients, and I only take new ones if the offer is genuinely big and worth my time. Hold on. The first gave you 4K hours, your max was 170K for a weekend, and in 20 years you barely cracked a bit over $1 million? Most 40-something nerds on Reddit since 2003 have hit 7 figures. You're taking 2 specific numbers as the measure of my entire career, and it's not. Those were exceptional spikes, not typical rates. In reality, most arrangements were different. Some were long-term with smaller but steady payouts. Sometimes it wasn't about money at all. And I turned down plenty because they didn't fit what I wanted. My life and my choices were never about chasing every possible dollar. Yes, the money was good, but it was never the only reason to stay in this world. There are lots of details and context I deliberately left out for confidentiality. Without them, it's easy to draw conclusions that don't reflect how it really was. What's the length and girth of your equipment? Total length is 9.25 inches, width about 1.5 inches. What did you take from all this that helps you now? One big thing I learned, women are much hornier than a lot of men assume. The desire for intimacy is way stronger than people give them credit for. For many, it's not just physical. It's a way to feel alive, wanted, and powerful. Men often think women can easily go without sex or only want it for romance. That's far from true. In the right conditions, they can easily match men in that drive, even surpass them. Another key observation, money changes the rules. It's not just about buying things. It's the power and access it gives. Money opens doors most people don't even see. Once you understand how fast it can shift the balance of power, you can't see it the old way anymore. In that world, resource holders set the rhythm for everyone else. And as perfect as wealth and influence may look from the outside, most affluent people's inner lives are empty. Smiles at balls, vacation photos, picture-perfect marriages. Most of it is image management. Behind closed doors, there's often loneliness and boredom. In your view, how are women different from men? Can you say you understand women now? Men and women move through life with different default settings. Women read emotions, atmosphere, and subtext more finely, while men are often focused on action and direct problem solving. A man tends to jump in and fix it, while a woman may prefer to live through the situation, feel it, and dig deeper. Neither approach is better or worse, they're just different responses. Over time, I realized understanding women isn't learning a bag of tricks or traits. It's the ability to pay attention and not impose your frame. Then you start seeing patterns. What builds their trust? What makes them feel safe? What attracts them? Authenticity matters a lot, even fleeting, and they read fakeness instantly. Sometimes a tiny detail, like how you look at her while talking, matters more than a grand gesture. I wouldn't claim I fully understand women or that I'm an expert. No one is. But I've studied their intimate side, their desires and needs very well. Got any proofs for what you wrote? Proofs of what exactly? You want me to post bank statements, plane tickets, hotel invoices, or yacht selfies with somebody's wife and a thank you card in the background? My face and all specifics stay private. That's exactly why I've lasted so long in this world. Did women ever bring up fetishes or weird kinks? People stereotype rich men. What about women? Yeah, a lot are into things. Most had some fetish, and almost all the ones I was with on the down low gravitated to black men. Dirty talk is almost always a must. And older women like missionary way more than people think. Some like doing it outdoors or on hotel balconies for the adrenaline. Others preferred control scenarios. Many of their kinks boil down to power play and the thrill of doing something behind the husband's back, even if it's just a particular way of talking or a risky spot. Plenty also love a breeding kink. Usually it's not about extremes. It's about intensity and the depth of connection in the moment, things they don't get from their husbands. Ever caught feelings for any of these women? How did it affect your personal relationships? Yes, but not the way people imagine. With some, a strong emotional attachment grew over time, which complicated things because we were supposed to have clear boundaries. In everyday life, it made intimacy more layered. I got used to a certain level of thrill, attention, and lifestyle that's hard to reproduce in standard relationships, so I consciously try not to compare the two worlds. All of it definitely changed how I see intimacy, trust, and vulnerability. I read almost the whole thread. I had a similar run, 50-plus women in 6 years when I was in my early 30s, ages 18 to about 50. Your story sounds plausible, but it's weird. You've done this 20 years and barely made $1 million. That's not much and doesn't match premium rates, considering you had no expenses, unique access, and got paid well for your time. Unless you had huge spending, I don't get it. It's possible because that number isn't accurate. I actually made much more. People heard one number and fixated on it. I've been doing this a long time, and income didn't just come from clients. I had other business ventures. I left a lot out for privacy, and because I don't see the point of turning this into a 20-paragraph opus. I'm sure nobody wants to read the entire novel of my life. Hey OP, thanks for sharing. Any grooming style tips? What's best to get a woman's attention? Clothes, fragrance, etc. And what personality traits do they like or hate? Looks matter, but not the way guys think. It's not about how expensive your suit is. It's about clothes that fit well, feel comfortable, and look intentional. Neutral, well-made pieces almost always win. They don't scream for attention, but signal you're put together. Same with scent. Light and fresh beats heavy and harsh. She should only notice it up close, not from 15 feet away. Personality-wise, the winner is quiet confidence without the need to keep proving it. Listen more than you talk. When you talk, say something that matters. Don't brag, don't be overly accommodating, and most importantly, don't chase. Women like a man who moves at his own rhythm, doesn't need outside approval, and makes them feel they should earn his attention just as he earns theirs. That's my take. First, what does a happy life look like to you? It can relate to your story or not. Second, did you ever cross paths with these women's kids? Third, how has this experience shaped your view of relationships? Could you openly date or even marry a woman like your clients if the chance came up, or would you rather be with someone for whom intimacy isn't just a transaction? Maybe alternative relationship formats fit you better? Fourth, what do you usually talk about with clients? A happy life for me is freedom. Waking up and choosing what to do without being chained to a schedule I hate. That's the most valuable thing money can buy. I've never met their kids. That part of their lives is completely walled off from me. The whole experience made me more selective in relationships. I could date or even marry a woman like my clients if there were a real connection, but I'd still prefer to be with someone for whom intimacy isn't just a deal. I'm open to different formats as long as there's honesty. Our conversations aren't always about sex. More often it's travel, art, news, business, politics, life stories, and a lot more. If the conversation isn't interesting, everything else loses value. You said you made this thread as therapy. What are you hoping to get out of it? Good question. Partly I just wanted to speak freely without filters. In real life, almost no one knows about this, and I don't have anyone to discuss it with openly. Writing it down here lets me rethink what's happened. Who knows what would have happened if I kept it only in my head? Maybe this way I get a little more clarity on what it means to me long term. What's the value system for these people? Do they follow any philosophers or thought leaders? It looks like they live by their own rules, but really it's just a different set of strict norms. When I first stepped into that world, it was a shock. I grew up poor, and seeing how they live, spend, and who they mix with felt like another planet. It's not about philosophers or ideology. The top priority is the picture, appearances, reputation, money as the highest value. As long as the image and order are intact, a lot becomes permissible. It's not chaos, but it's not the morality most people live by either. The unwritten rule is, what's allowed is defined by power and convenience, not ethics. Marriage can be a deal. Relationships a strategy. Fidelity is measured by keeping secrets, not by love. If something threatens public image, it gets handled fast and quietly. If it doesn't, it's ignored. That's how their world works, and it holds together because everyone benefits from maintaining the system. That's my personal opinion. I'm not going to ask a question, but you said women who had it all still looked for something else. They clearly didn't have it all. They're stuck in marriages of convenience where the husband is constantly absent and likely cheating himself. For them, that may be better than marrying for love and staying broke. So hiring someone like you is just a way to fill an inner void. From the outside, it might look like they have everything, but on the inside, it's mostly held together by money, not love. Husbands are busy with their own thing, and wives quietly fill the gaps without sacrificing their lifestyle. Hi, OP. I used to be a sugar baby too, but a woman. What cover story did they invent for you when they took you to events? It's not easy to explain where a married woman suddenly gets a 20-year-old plus one. Overall, great answers. I'm sure Reddit would be shocked how common these arrangements are among the rich. Thanks. And yeah, I'm sure most people would be shocked how common this is, especially among the ultra-wealthy. At events, they almost always introduced me in ways that felt natural and acceptable. I was the nephew, the godson, a family friend's kid, or even a young employee being mentored. These stories were usually worked out in detail and tailored to the audience, so no one asked questions. In those circles, people rarely asked directly anyway, but I was never introduced to families. That was my hard boundary from day one. First, when you started in 2003, how did you even arrange meetups without modern apps? Phone calls or notes via club staff? Second, if a client covered all expenses, what did that look like in practice? Cash every time or everything billed to her hotel store accounts? Third, you mentioned the Everglades Club. I've heard the member rules are strict. Did you have special staff rules? Fourth, how did you report this income for taxes? Some category or just kept it cash? Fifth, in the early 2000s, what did you put in the occupation line on your tax return, self-employed or something else? When I started, it was old school. Arrangements were face-to-face or by phone, no texts, no apps. Sometimes it was as simple as her naming a time and place as she left the club. Secrecy was paramount, so nothing was written down or passed through staff to avoid a paper trail. If a client covered expenses, I almost never saw bills. Flights were booked for me, hotels prepaid, dinners went to the room, clothes were bought right in the store. Sometimes there was an envelope of cash, but usually my costs were just added to an existing account. The Everglades Club really did have strict rules for members and staff. No phones in the rooms, no photos, no discussing members' lives outside the club. Privacy and tradition. I won't go into more detail, but I always made sure things were handled legally, part cash, part other arrangements, done in ways that wouldn't cause me problems. Early on my returns, I put something vague but legitimate like consultant or contractor and filed it as self-employment. I won't get more specific than that. What did you learn about women's psychology, main takeaways when you said you studied body language, timing, and patterns? Where can someone read more? A lot of men treat women's psychology as a puzzle to solve. It's more like a frequency to tune into. Women are driven less by logic like men and more by state, energy, and how something feels in the moment. Timing is huge. Say the right words at the wrong time and they lose weight. Stay silent at the perfect moment, and that lands harder than any line. Intimacy isn't just physical closeness. It's catching micro-emotions before she does, knowing when to hold eye contact a little longer, when to pause, when to change rhythm. Everything in her behavior is a signal. How she touches her hair when interested, how her breathing changes when she's calm, how her voice sounds when she's engaged. There are tons of books. But I'd call out Carl Jung, Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, Man and His Symbols. Robert Greene, The Art of Seduction. David Buss, The Evolution of Desire. Jane Carnes, Dangerous Men and Adventurous Women and Similar Research. Thanks for the honesty. Since you mentioned your race, do they value or fetishize you because of it? Are you okay with that? Do you feel used or do you accept and use it? Yeah, I know it's fetishization, and I'm fine with it. It's part of what's attractive in that world. Honestly, it's worked in my favor. I don't feel used. Both sides get what they're after. I accept it and do my role at a high level. Thanks a lot for watching. If you've done something similar, drop your story in the comments. And by the way, if you were eating while watching and still haven't finished, go check out any of these videos. They're dope. They're right there on your screen. Click, watch. That's it. See you tomorrow.